I know how frustrating it can be when you are talking to a group of people or maybe your best friend and you find that they're not really listening to you. They're either looking at their phones and whatever they're doing, it's much more interesting than what you have to say. Or you find yourself in a team meeting and you're chairing the meeting and you find people are falling asleep. Or you are in a party in your best friend's birthday and you were trying to tell them a story and nobody was listening. They are just busy having their own internal conversations. So that can be very frustrating. I can understand that. I hear you and feel your pain. So today I'm going to share with you some secrets on how you can capture people's attention when you're talking to them to get them to listen to you, and some mistakes that you can avoid, mistakes that you unknowingly have performed without knowing that it actually brings a negative effect, and how we're going to overcome that. Hi, my name is Jules T and welcome to my channel. This channel is all about communication and mental health. So if you think that this video can help someone in your community, do feel free to share this video. One of the common mistakes that people do is talking about themselves or constantly talking about other people. What do I mean by that? When people are talking a lot about themselves, the conversation can sometimes tend to be a little bit selfish. That means they talk everything about themselves and they do not care what the audience is thinking. It's a monologue conversation where there's no two-way kind of conversation, and sometimes when the conversations get too lengthy, the other person may get bored or not interested in continuing that conversation. And have you ever noticed whenever you go into meetings that when two persons are talking and you try to take over the conversation, and before the person has finished talking, you continue on with your conversation so that you can override the discussion? That itself can be a fatal mistake, because it causes a lot of frustration and misunderstanding, because you want yourself to be heard and therefore you louden your voice, you create authoritative kind of feeling, you create tension in the discussion by taking over the conversation before the other person has finished, and even take it like a competitive sport, meaning that you always must have the last say in the discussion. One thing to know is that listening is the key to winning a conversation. So it's not necessarily that you are dominating the conversation that you are actually winning the discussion. And if you have some opinions in the discussion, remember to ask if it's okay for you to give your opinions. Would you like to hear my opinion on this? Instead of just barging and pushing your opinions to others. And it can be rude sometimes, because you never know that actually the other person is not asking for your advice, but rather hoping that you would listen to what she has to say. Offer your thoughts sparingly whenever it's necessary, and then the person will feel validated. Then you can turn things around and they start listening to you. Instead of talking about yourself, you're talking about others. Our brains are naturally built for gossiping, but it can become dangerous if we use gossiping to hurt or have malicious intent on the other party. If you feel or you realize that the intention of the conversation, why you're saying it, can hurt another person, then perhaps you want to avoid doing that. Mistake number 2 is complaining, judging the person, being very negative. It takes 0.1 second for your brain to judge a person. It boosts your ego to tell people you're better than others. But then again, nobody likes to be judged. If you're judging this person, the listener might think, will you judge me next? If you tend to tell people you're better than others, that you're better than them, then they will lose interest in listening to what you have to say. There's some people you meet who like to complain. They complain about politics, about being in the opposition, and things that you completely have no control about. And it gets very frustrating listening to them, because when you listen and you can't do anything about it, why bother to listen? You are constantly being with this person who is so negative, complaining about everybody around her or him, then you feel that it brings my mood down and I just want to stay away from this person. I'd rather be with someone who is positive, who is funny, who really makes my day. And being negative and judgmental sometimes can bring down the emotions and the motivation of the people around them. It's important that we are sensitive to the people's feelings and remind ourselves, what gifts are we giving to people today? Are we creating better lives for other people? Are we making their day a better day? If we are just complaining and making the other person feel worse and helpless and unable to do anything, what you're doing is actually very damaging. So if you feel what you're saying can actually help the person, can actually make the person happier, give them a better day, a happier day, then by all means say it. Third thing is to boss people around. There's a difference between a manager and a leader. A manager is somebody who tells you, do this, do this, do this. A leader is the one who encourages you and pushes you from behind. When you try to boss people around, tendency is that you can expect your team members to retaliate against you. So when you try to work with the people or let them know that you're behind them, you're supporting them from behind, then you will get people to actually listen to what you have to say and follow your lead. So remember, being a boss doesn't mean that you can push people around or order your way around. Rather, you can do it in a bold and polite manner, yet gain respect from the people around you. The other extreme is being not confident. There are people who are not confident. That means whenever you speak to them, they are not exactly looking at you in the eye. They're either looking on the ground or their body language shows that they are not confident about what they are saying. So tendency is people would not really trust or listen to what they have to say and they will just ignore the person or be rude to that person. So if you're naturally an introvert like myself, then push yourself to talk to other people. Watch your body language, stand confidently, speak confidently, and make yourself mingle around with others more frequently. And you feel that the more frequent you do that, the more you're going to come out from your shell and the more confidence you can build around you. Slowly your confidence will grow and you will emit that kind of aura around you and people will start to listen to you. So that's for the mistakes that people make. What about things that we can do to encourage people to listen to us? Step number 1, secret number 1 is active listening. When you listen to another person speaking, how you respond, what you do with what you heard makes a lot of difference. First of all, active listening means that there's a two-way conversation. You're speaking, they are speaking, you're taking turns to speak. You're giving people the space to speak and the space for you to listen. And in the conversation, you will be non-judgmental. You will listen and not give your opinions unless it's asked or unless you think that your opinions can help. Ask them if they would like to hear your opinion. When you listen to others, remember, if you are an impatient person, be patient. Be patient with what the other person has to say. Listen to the end, what they have to say before you give your inputs. Secondly, when you speak to the other person, there are sometimes silences in between. Don't be too afraid to have silence in discussions. Sometimes you just can ponder and not say anything and just be comfortable with each other's presence. And when you do active listening, when the other person speaks, remember to ask questions related to what he has said or repeat what the person has said so that the other person knows you're acknowledging what he said. At the end of the conversation, what you can do is to summarize the entire exchange. Then the person will understand if you actually understood what he said the entire conversation. And most importantly, be present in the conversation. Don't fiddle with your phone or fiddle with your hair or look elsewhere. Make sure you have eye contact with the other person so that they know that you're focused on speaking to them. And remember, when you speak to the other person, use the person's name. Catherine, what do you think about this? Catherine, oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful, Catherine. So when you use their name often, people will feel more obliged to listen to what you have to say. It goes the same when you're trying to sell somebody something. You have more chances of making that sale if you address the person by the name. Remember to include their name because they would feel that you value them, that they are important in your life, in your conversation. Secret number 2 is get the other person to talk about themselves. On the average, 60% of people love talking about themselves. If you go to social media, 80% of people on Facebook like to project things about their life because they want to show people about their lives. It's all about them. So people are very interested in themselves. The more they are talking about themselves, the more engaged they are in a conversation with you. It makes them feel important in your conversation. It makes them feel they had the best conversation in the world. As an icebreaker, if you want to approach a person and it's so difficult for you, perhaps you can ask questions about themselves. You can start with making honest compliments like, "Oh, I love your shirt." Make sure it comes from your heart, because if you try to sugarcoat your compliments, people will detect it right away and they won't trust you at all. So be interested in the other person. It's a great icebreaker in conversations. Secret number 3, when you want to get people to listen to you, is to use your voice. Have you noticed that some people have a very high-pitched voice? And sometimes it can be really annoying. Most people speak from their throats, but if you want to gain authority in the conversation, then try to speak from your chest. When you speak from your chest, you will find that it is more powerful. Most politicians, they speak from their chest, and it allows them to gain authority, gain respect from the people around them. Because naturally people are drawn to others who project lower voices, because it gives a kind of calm and warm feeling and a trusting feeling when they listen to your voice. Remember, when you speak the other person, just be a little sensitive of the reaction of the people that you're speaking to. If you are a lecturer in a class and you find your students are yawning away and trying to keep their eyes open, which is so difficult, then you know that maybe you ought to change the way you give your lecture. Raise your voice a little bit to gain more attention, or you can make your presentation more fun. As a great speaker, when you speak to another person, remember, it's not about promoting yourself, your self-worth, that I'm good. It is about the audience, the other person you're talking to. You care about them, what gifts that you want to give to them, what knowledge you want to pass to them, what do you want to share with them. If you have this concept in your mind, then when you speak to the other person, then you can project genuineness in your speech with the other person. And therefore, you can attract people to want to listen to you. I know that today it's very difficult to stand out among all the voices. There's so many distractions in the world. Your handphone, your iPads, your computers. With these mystics that I shared with you and these methods and principles I shared with you, practice it out and you will find that people will naturally draw to you and to your message. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you feel there's anyone in your life, your family, your friends, your colleagues who may benefit from this video, feel free to share this with them. Feel free to put in your comments if there's something that you want me to talk about in my next video. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Goodbye.